Good morning and good afternoon, people. God bless you wherever you are. Now, a lot of the problems we face today has to do with, people not recognizing the truth, and has to do with a lot of lies. Nations are rocked by inflation. You've got brothers fighting brothers here at home in the USA and all across the world. And the question is why? Well, Yahweh has a different design. And unfortunately, we've already won the battle, but a lot don't realize it. The battle is in our hearts and minds, and it's to conquer the evil we see inside and outside of us. And it starts with the Bible. Now, history has told a lot of lies. You can see here, Plans of Babylon. This is a very, very, very old book. But look at that. Look at that design. This is supposed to be Jerusalem. Why does it look like that? This is supposed to be those who guarded the southern gates, who were very close. And it starts with maps. Now, it's not coincidental that old maps and new laser image scans of this planet that we reside under, this spherical dome, prove that it's not actually a globe. Now, the oldest maps in history correlate to giant trees. And in the Bible, there was 3. And what you might notice is new movies that they label as fiction also partly telling the truth. Now, there's one in particular called Avatar with a giant tree, and it correlates to the Bible in many ways. Out in America, there's also a rock called Devil's Rock, and coincidentally, scientists have scanned roots under this rock, a root cave system that goes for miles and miles and miles and miles. Now, the question is, why is it called Devil's Rock? I believe it used to be one of the 3 trees in the Bible, the tree of life, which means history has lied or has forgotten how to apply the truth in a lot of ways. Because the Bible was changed up by people that came over to colonize. How do I know that? Well, there's a lot of American towns that have been renamed and were original biblical names. There's a Mount Nebo here. There's a bunch load of, non-coincidental stuff that actually proves that America's a lot older and the world is not shaped exactly the way it says it is. But it all goes back to biblical text. What I mean is a lot older is it's not in age-wise. It's in biblical text-wise. Why do I say that? There's symbols of a cross. A Mayan crossed God in Mayan mythology, they say. And I believe it's true. Why? Well, there's a lot that has to do with Seminole groups and the people of the sun, which they used to call Americans. Seminole Americans who would stare at the sun. And in the Bible, the sun is a representation, literally, of the Son of Man. And in the Bible, it also says in Genesis and in different Torah biblical texts that we all resided within God before we were born. And that when he said, let there be light, his light was also put inside our forms. It also says in biblical texts and agnostic texts that Jesus Christ himself walked in the garden, the sacred garden, when it was formed, before we actually had our forms. And in that text, it also says that Satan came down and he tempted man. And coincidentally, he did it through not a fruit from a tree, but he did it through our bloodlines. Eve had 2 sons, Abel and Cain. And we all know how that went. What does that have to do with America? Well, the same problems are happening today. Brothers fighting brothers, inside and outside, and all around. And it's been happening since way before Galileo decided to change maps that were around and change the way the universe system works by not believing that everything rotated around the center of the sun, which we see with our eyes every day, twice in a day, if we look up at the sky. Now, the sun and the moon, they are described in the Bible as every star is a celestial body. And celestial bodies in the Bible are described as being angelic light forms. And as people of the sun around the world, we used to look up at the sun and we used to know where we're going by angles and by shades or shadows caused by angles, which people now refer to as sunlight. But wise men used to look up at the stars and travel by them. And you can actually, coincidentally, locate where your pinpointed location is on the face of the moon from the dark. Now, as 4 tribes of Seminole people, you had all of the nations. You had the Gauls, who the Romans fought against, which now became Britannia, as Britannia was actually black. You have every other nation, the Chinese nation, who coincidentally, along with a lot of other nations like India and a lot of Pacifics, are fighting against each other because of caste systems, which has to do with your color being darker. And what happens is these poor people are subject to a lot of harsh treatment, and it still correlates with the Bible. Now, conquest and colonization has also been one of the ways that they disguise the lies, but it's still by God's design. Why? Because he meant for everyone to mix in. He made every color that we see down here, and he is not colorblind. So all we really have to do to realize that with one from the beginning is trace back to the Bible. Because all we have to do is fight the devil inside and outside of us. How do we do that? Well, we do it by prayer, meditation, by being good to each other. And by noticing people's actions, not just through their words, but looking how their actions promote change.